Welcome back to Built for Profit. Guys, I am so pumped today to have Mr. Dave Anderson joining the call. The quick little background on Mr. Dave. He is some of my wife and I's closest friends' father. And he's one of the most generous people I've ever met. I just have gotten to know him over the past, I guess, goodness, we've been married a little over 10 years. Got to know Megan and Andrew. So Megan is his daughter. Got to know them, I guess, Dave, you and Susan for close to those 10 years or so, just with
Yeah.
becoming close friends with them. And the other thing I just really respect about you, Dave, just by getting close to you is, I feel like you're a man that like is really good at being where your feet are. You're like very present in the moment and just like enjoying life wherever your feet are at. And so, anyway, just love it so much. So I can't wait to dive into your story. I think you have a fascinating story where the Lord's done a lot of awesome things in your life. So I'm excited to talk about that. So Dave, number one, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. No, looking forward to this.
Excited to have you here. So yeah, if you want to kick us off here, just by telling us a little bit about Dave, just younger, where you grew up, playing college sports, all the things.
All right. I grew up in St. Charles, Illinois, which is about 40 miles west of Chicago. When I grew up, it was pretty much farm country, and we grew up on the west side of St. Charles. So you're out in the cornfields. And today, well, I raised my family there as well. So we spent a little time at Bethel College up in St. Paul. That's where I met my beautiful wife. We got married in '87, lived in Minneapolis for a few years,
Okay.
and then had an opportunity to move down to St. Louis. So let me just back up. So when I worked in Minneapolis, I worked for Penske Truck Leasing. Penske Truck Leasing and rents and leases trucks. I had met their vice president playing softball on the church softball team.
Very cool.
He got me an interview with Penske, and I won't tell you what I made per hour when I first started with them. So you're like, why did I go to college for this? But anyway, it was a learning process. It was a training process to get to the next level. So anyway, we're up in
Real
Minneapolis.
quick on that, Dave. So were you still in, like, when you met on the softball fields, you had just graduated college and y'all just happened, like, were you working somewhere right after college? And
Actually, I was in college. Still, living in St. Charles.
Yeah.
And on the church softball team, and Tim Stoner says, "Hey, when you're done with school, come see us." And so that's how it happened. He was impressed with my softball play.
Well, the thing you blazed over for a second, I just know this from your son-in-law, but you played college football, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
so what position? What
Strong
about
safety, strong
Right.
safety. I can
Strong
tell
side?
you that we didn't break any records for most wins or anything like this at Bethel College. They're a much better team today. Actually, they're a Division III team, and they compete, seems like every year for the championship. So
Oh,
they've
wow.
really
Okay.
come a long way.
That's
So
awesome. You ever go back to
when
any of their games?
part, yeah, when they play in Chicago, typically in the playoffs, they play North Central, which is
Okay.
another phenomenal program.
Yeah.
And yeah, Susan and I will go there, and then we'll meet up with some of the buddies from school. They'll come down from Minneapolis,
That's great.
and we'll hang out and see them. It's like a reunion.
Yeah. I love
When
that. That's awesome.
that's good.
Very cool.
But anyway, so we still have works there. But anyway, so I go to work for Penske in Minneapolis. Tim, the guy who got me the job with Penske, leaves Penske and goes to PACCAR, which PACCAR
Okay.
is owner of Kenworth and Peterbilt trucks, and they have a leasing division. He says, "Hey, how'd you like to come to St. Louis and run that operation?" So it was a small operation, but the best part about that business was it was a dealership, and I learned so much about the truck specs. Uh, at that point, it took about 6 to 12 months to get new vehicles, so it was very tough to build the business. But learned a ton about the equipment side of it, and kind of fell in love with how you put a truck together.
Yeah. And so real quick, just to clarify, when you say truck, I think about Penske, I can see everything from like a moving truck all the way to, a 53-foot, massive 18-wheeler. What were you everything in between, or did you specialize in one specific truck?
So when I worked at Penske, yeah, we were renting the one-way mover trucks, and then we would also rent out tractor trailer semis.
Okay.
And then when I went down to St. Louis to work for the Kenworth dealer, that was all semis.
Okay.
So
Okay, cool.
yeah, you learn how to put together a truck, more about maintenance side of it, that kind of thing. But while I was there, since I had a small fleet, my goal was to have everything on long-term lease My goal was that was the goal. But I built a relationship with Rollins Truck Leasing at that time. So if I ever needed a truck to replace one of mine that was broken down, anyway, I'd use Rollins. And
Cool.
anyway, so the dealership and the health of the business wasn't great. So we were there about 2 years, and I had the opportunity to get back to Chicago with Rollins.
Okay.
So we took advantage of that, got back to Chicago. I still say this: if you can't make it in Chicago, you can't make it anywhere. There's all kinds of business. They did put me in like the worst territory you could ever ask for, the south side of Chicago. I mean, you're calling on, 100 plus old businesses. They don't want to change the way they do things. Anyway, it was a process. Then they took me out to further out towards St. Charles area, West Chicago.
Okay.
And I think my income doubled just by moving out there because that's where all the new business was going. So
Wow. Okay.
it was a good thing to be a part of.
So
Anyway,
I guess where was the family dynamics between that as well? So you said you were in St. Louis for 2 years. Is that
yeah,
right?
we're in St. Louis. Then we moved to St. Charles. So
Okay.
my wife says, I'll move back to Chicago. I think I could say it. My parents are no longer with us, but I don't want to live right next to your parents.
Yeah.
So we started looking, and an old friend of mine says, "Hey, I have some friends that have a really nice home and they're really struggling to sell it, and they'd be interested in you staying there.
Okay.
It's for sale."
Yeah.
So guess where that was? Pretty close to the parents. So so anyway, we ended up moving there, and it was a beautiful home. It was, one of these homes a young couple you couldn't afford. So anyway, but we stayed there 2 years. We got all our debt paid off, put some
That's
money in
awesome.
the bank, and I just remember them coming to us. Why didn't you buy this house? And
Yeah.
anyway, it was beautiful. It was like 3 acres in the woods, and it was kind of contemporary. But it was so much fun to have lived there. A beautiful spot. Anyway, so then we had moving out of there. We bought a house in St. Charles, and that's where we raised our family.
Very cool.
That house, which was a fixer-upper, flipped it, and then moved to a new home further out near a little town called Wasco, which is like a suburb of St. Charles, which is again where I grew up. Now,
Yeah.
now we're really getting close to the house.
Yeah. I love it. That's wild. So did you have when did y'all start having kids? Was that once y'all got back to St. Charles? Or did y'all have any in
No,
St.
in St. Louis. Kelsey was born in St.
Okay.
Louis, St. Anthony Hospital. Yeah, that was a big deal. Susan's parents had to come in from Arizona. My parents had to come in from the Chicago area, and we had a new home down there. So that was exciting. But again, new homes are a lot of work, landscaping,
Yeah.
making them home, and Susan's likes to do with that, my wife. But
Yeah.
anyway, uh,
I love it. Okay. So going back to, you said in St. Charles, and was it Roland? That was the company you were working for?
yeah, Rollins, and
Okay.
then
Roland.
I left Rollins and went back to Penske. The guy who
Oh, wow.
hired me at Penske, one of the other guys that hired me at Penske, brought me back to Penske. I'd go about 4 years into that, and that would really worked out well. 4 years into that, Penske buys Rollins. So now I'm back with the home team. If you look at my resume or you call Penske up HR, it looks like I worked for Penske for like 30 plus years. But because they bought everybody, including where I ended up. But
Yeah.
anyway, so I'm having wonderful success at Penske. It was a lot of fun, and one of my customers came to me and said, "Hey, we're thinking about adding another sales guy." This was like in the fall, yeah, of what, 2002. I'm like, okay, I'll just keep, I run into somebody, blah blah blah. So 6 months later, I'm like, are you still looking for somebody? I'm just looking for something different. And I had gotten my feet wet in the dedicated trucking space at Rollins because that was one of their divisions. They wanted to lease trucks, but then they were like, hey, one account a year, we want you to convert from a lease to a dedicated operation. And so I had that kind of in my blood. And anyway, so went to work for Black Horse Carriers, Jerry Nieder.
Okay.
The Nieder family is 100 years in the trucking business and in the Chicago market. If you ever ask what ORD stands for at the airport, O'Hare Airport, it's
Yeah.
the orchard fields. Orchard. It has something to do with the orchard fields
No way.
in Des Plaines. So, and that's where his father did a lot of hauling out of, and then he and his brother kind of took that business to the next level. Well, they sold the business in the 80s, And one of the customers came back to him, small customer named Aldi, and said, "Hey, we need help. We need your help. We need your help in Allentown, PA." And so the two brothers said, "Hey, let's get back into it."
Interesting.
That was a
Is that
business.
where Aldi's based out of? Is Allentown, Pennsylvania?
Aldi's actually based in Batavia, Illinois, which is right down the road from St. Charles.
Oh, wow.
So one brother stays out east. The other brother says, "I'm going back to Chicago and I'm going to start this thing in Chicago." Sure enough, Aldi says, "Hey, we need you in Batavia. We need you in the end, we ended up with 11 Aldi distribution sites.
Wow. Okay, so I have to back up for a second because I just wanna get understanding of so, when you
Okay.
went to Black Horse, that's when you ventured into the whole sales world of the trucking business. Prior to that, you were focused on truck leasing. Can you kinda describe a little bit, I guess, what you were like, when you were, I guess, building out rigs, leasing it, building relationships, how that differed, I guess, from how you moved into a sales role type thing on the with Black Horse?
Well, I was in sales with Penske and Rollins,
Okay.
but we were just leasing trucks, which is nothing more than renting trucks long term.
Yeah.
In some cases, we would spec out equipment. In many cases, the leasing company would just say, "Hey, we bought 500 of these tractors." When I say tractors, that's a semi.
Yeah.
Uh, and here's the specs, and you have no involvement. All you're doing is finding customers to take this tractor and at a good rate because they bought 500 of them, and there just wasn't much to it. There's not too much involvement other than uh, and then Rollins and Penske, they maintain that equipment. They guarantee the maintenance. So,
Okay.
it's for $2,000 a month. You've got a licensed truck, all the maintenance. It can be, lettered up with your name on the side. Well,
Got it.
then you go to the company that I went to, Black Horse Carriers, which is the one I'm talking about with the trucking end of it. Now you're just really adding a driver.
Okay.
It's okay. We got a leased truck, and now we're adding a driver, and so and trailers, whatever the need is there. But that's the difference in it. And then what we look for in a customer, because you don't want to just be hauling, paper down the road. There's nothing too difficult about hauling paper.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
the business we look for was the tough stuff.
Oh,
Batesville Casket was one of our customers. Batesville Casket.
okay.
But we're hauling caskets. We're using their trailers because they're really unique. They're shelving inside the trailers,
Oh,
so the
yeah.
caskets, and they have your name on them, and so you can't be late to a funeral. You know,
Yeah.
these are custom caskets. So we
Yeah.
did that. Aldi was again a large customer, and we took all their groceries to their store. We had access 24/7 to those stores.
Wow.
Our drivers put the dry freight in the warehouse. They put the refrigerated in the refrigerator, and they put the frozen freight in the freezer.
No way. Okay.
They didn't put it on the shelves, but they put it all in the right
Yeah, yeah.
spot. And then when they were done making the delivery, they would clean out that back room because grocery stores don't have big back room. You got to keep them clean. So we're bringing pallets and dunnage back to the warehouse. In
Wow.
some cases, if it's a daytime delivery, you'll go over to one of their vendors and pick up freight coming back inbound. So,
Real quick, and Dave, sorry, quick question on that, just because I don't know much about the trucking industry at all. Is that normal for like when you talk about your driver getting out of his truck to then go put things in the right place for the delivery location, as well as like clean out the back room to like, is that what kind of propelled y'all forward with Aldi, or is that something that's just like kind of normal in the industry?
no, that's very unique.
Okay, I
This
was about to say that's
we,
what.
we we say we did the tough stuff. We did the stuff that nobody else wants to do. But all that driver's making better money.
Yeah,
We can't let when a holiday comes up for Aldi, you can't let them down.
yeah,
Gotta have everybody's got to be working 10, 12-hour days to get all the product in these stores. You know how your wife and my wife like to go shopping right before the holidays. Gotta have that refrigerator filled up. So,
yeah.
but anyway, so we did that, and then we I was part of that company for about, well, since '03 to 2020, for 17 years.
Wow.
And during that 17 years, I think it's what you want to hear about is it Jerry, the owner, was trying to figure out how can I push this business to the next group so I can retire.
Yeah.
He was about 75 years old. He'd been in the trucking business his entire life. And, really, I mean, he could have sold it to another trucking company, but he really just liked what he had built and knew that if he could find a group of us to take it over, that we would protect his business.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, we tried in 08, 09, bad timing.
Yeah. So you
Uh,
tried to purchase it in 08 or 09?
yeah, we were talking to the banks and going through all that.
Yeah.
08, 09. That's actually the business did shrink a little bit, maybe 10% that year. We did kind of realign, make sure we're going after the right kind of customers.
Yeah.
And then in 2020, we were able to buy Fury out. I guess what I wanted to share with you also is, so we tried to buy that business, probably for the last 7 years of my career with Blackwood. And, and it wasn't till we had all the right people in place that we were able to make that happen. And we brought in a CEO that had participated in a couple M&As and he made a huge difference. We had a CEO that our CEO did not go to college, but he had an MBA.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you do that, but
Yeah.
he tested right through college and got his MBA at Northwestern, I want to say. So this isn't like, but he's just a brilliant guy. At the end of
Yeah.
the day, I'd be working with him on numbers, and you could see it. He was great. I could go all day long, but I could see he was just drained because what he's able to do with numbers and mental capacity, it's far beyond what I would think.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
And then we had four divisions in our business, and we had three vice presidents over those four divisions, and they all, one of them had a division that really wasn't making any money, and was able to turn that around.
Okay.
Not a ton of money, but he got us out of the red in that group of customers. The previous owner really didn't necessarily care that he made a lot of money. He was wanting to take care of the customer,
Yeah.
and he really did set us up for success when
Yeah.
after we bought him off. But
So real quick, I want to go back to your point. I love what you brought up of like putting the right people and the puzzle piece together to like allow the acquisition to happen and really propel the business forward. So I assume in 2008, when y'all first tried to buy the business, that CEO was not around, that
no,
y'all,
no,
so it's
he
different.
wasn't around, or he was new with the company.
Okay.
In the first 1 or 2 years, and uh, you know, he was the one who came in and said, "Hey, it doesn't matter that we increase sales 25% a year. What matters is we do something to the bottom line."
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
And once we made the purchase of Blackwood, that was the difference. Was the bottom.
Yeah. 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 So, okay. This is so much fun. I love that you bring
Yeah.
this up because there's a couple things I still want to get into on that. So obviously let's focus on the bottom line first. So you feel like from 2003, when you joined, to 2020, the main theme of the company was like, take care of your customers, take care of your business, but more focused on top line revenue.
Yes, absolutely.
And then, your CEO came on board. You and him are getting close. I guess how many of were y'all that actually purchased it in 2020, in 20,
There were seven of us.
7 of them? Okay.
Yeah.
All the people that had been working in the business for a good amount of time.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And then y'all flipped the switch, I guess, in 2020, because I want to get into the 4 divisions here in a second. But once y'all bought it in 2020, that was like the first lever that y'all felt like y'all could pull as new owners to be like, okay, wait a second, let's shift our thinking to now saying, let's focus on bottom line and who we're serving and increasing that amount.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
So I'm curious, like, tell me, let's just dive in for a second and share whatever you want to share. Can you go through the 4 divisions real quick? And then did you start by analyzing per division to say like, okay, let's focus on division number 1 to get it profitable first, and then focus division number 2, or just kind of talk us through number one, let us know what the 4 divisions are, and then number
Yeah.
2, let us know kinda y'all's process of kinda increasing profit.
All right. So there's the perishable group, which
Okay. Yep.
all food related.
Yep.
We had fresh bakery and dairy.
Okay.
That was a pretty decent size. You could put that into perishable, but uh, bakery and dairy. So we
Yeah.
did with bread. Our automotive group, which we got to talk about that. So um,
Okay.
that was ended up being our largest fruit by the end of our purchase and sale of the business, and then retail and consumer. And retail
What
and
was retail and consumer, okay.
consumer. That was the toughest business we had
Okay.
from a bottom line. That
Okay.
was the one that really needed some massaging. And
Okay.
again, early on, I would rate out business, and then I would be influenced to take margin out. And it was the owner who would come back. We're talking to these are, big German automakers,
Yeah.
and we want to do business with them, and we have to prove ourselves. I get it. Why? So he would just say, "Hey, take another quarter million."
Yeah.
Anyway, so like I said, and I'm kind of like a squirrel. I'm all over the place, but
No, this is fun to hear.
um, he set us up with this automotive group that we back in '03 we had business with Mercedes Benz.
Okay.
Mercedes Benz says, "Hey, BMW is coming to town. We want you to talk to them because we haul Mercedes Benz parts from Chicago to Fargo, North Dakota." As an example, that's a
Okay.
long ways.
Yeah.
But now you can haul my parts along with the Beamer parts in the same trailer.
Okay.
Now you can cut my costs out, maybe not by 50%, but you can cut my costs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they introduced us to them, and that was the start of what we call shared services,
Very cool.
all automotive shared service. So
Wow, okay, and so that's what really and you said that was kind of y'all's not breadwinner, but a really good division for y'all, and a lot of that was from this shared service mentality of saying like, "Okay, we can think through who needs to get this from point A to point B, and how many people can we pack into one truckload to get it
yes,
there?"
how can I get a whole truck going to Fargo, North Dakota?
Yeah.
This is okay. Now you're delivering a few dealers in Minneapolis, a few dealers in St. Cloud, a few dealers in Alexandria, Minnesota, which maybe you don't even have a clue where it's at, and then
Yeah.
up to Fargo. Now we have a full truck going to Fargo. Things like
Yeah.
that. Hmm, I can't.
Very cool, okay.
He had set us up for that, that business when we took the business over,
Yeah.
with a number of companies. But there were a couple companies who just didn't want to do business with. And these are American automakers. And the owner was really gun shy on that. When we
Okay.
took the business over, and there's reasons for that. One of them, the biggest reason was if you damage parts, um, you got a cargo claim, and they were known uh, for having large claims,
Okay.
and I mean large claims. So so you had a budget for it, and without any experience with these companies, we didn't know what number to fill in on the claims line. But anyway, I think when we sold the business, we had probably added $250 million of business with the auto brands in that 5 year span that we owned it.
Whoa.
When we bought the company, we were doing just over 200 million in business total.
Oh my gosh.
So that tells you how big that brand or
Yeah.
that shared services and automotive group was something else.
Holy smokes, Dave. Okay, so owned it for 5 years, just kinda recapping a little bit. Owned it for
Yep.
5 years. Did you still have the 4 divisions 5 years later when you sold the company, or did y'all shut any of those divisions down?
Oh no, no, we had them all. We
Okay.
had them all. We, we just that our customers did not want to change vendors.
Yeah.
We provided a great service.
Yeah.
So service wasn't our problem. We would spend any amount of money to make sure that our service was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So for the most part, the shipper would work with us to make things right. Not that
Yeah.
they were an open checkbook by any means, but we were a partner with them. And that's, I mean, when you look back at our growth, there were a lot of new customers, some new customers. I shouldn't say a lot, some new customers, but it was mostly organic growth.
Yeah.
You do business with Mercedes-Benz in Chicago. Now you're doing business with them in Missouri. You're doing business with them in Florida, Jacksonville. You're doing, Texas. You're doing business in California. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, that that fixing some of the businesses, our shippers work with us, and then any new business, we made sure that we had good margins so
Yeah.
that we could do what we needed to do. Yes.
Yeah. So I love there's so much wisdom behind. You said you basically would spend any amount of money to make sure the customer's happy. Like y'all's service was like any amount of money for customer service. But to your point, I think the only way I just want business owners to hear this. The only way that you can do that is if you operate with margin in your business, so you actually have the funds to then go spend what you need to
Yeah.
spend on customer service to really wow the customer and keep that longevity of the client. And I think there's so much wisdom behind that. I love it
Oh
so
no.
much.
Oh no. No. Yeah. No. The other thing interesting, and I know that you speak about margin quite often in the trucking business. And this is, if you look at a public trucking company, look at the first quarter of the year, nobody makes money.
Interesting.
Nobody. You have all the insurance, all these costs. You got to pay up. You're. I'm not an accountant. You know better than I, but you got to pay all that unemployment or whatever it is up front. Uh,
Got
and
it.
then you're going through the winter months. Your mile per gallon per tractor is down because they don't tractors don't like cold. They
Gotcha.
idle a lot more in the cold weather. Accidents are up because of slippery conditions.
Yeah.
Um, and in some years, record, I say this is kind of before we bought it. It would be June and July before you bail yourself out and start seeing black numbers. Instead,
Wow. Yeah.
that was so when we bought the business and you're in the black in April and May, you were like, oh hell.
Yeah, exactly.
Before that, it was another 60 days before. And then, for your year, you're packing it on for the end of the summer and into the fall to try to make your nut, because December is kind of questionable. You never
Yeah,
know about December. December can be kind of
I gotcha.
but that's how we struggle.
Well, real quick, Dave, can walk us through how you were able to push that timeline up of numbers going into the black from June, July to like April? Was that because y'all focused on the bottom line and saying yes to the right people and no to the right people and looking at margin? Kind of walk us through kind of even how you even what was the big things that y'all did that to really increase the bottom line and move that timeline up?
The biggest part was just working with our customers and helping them, maybe educating them on the business.
Yeah,
We're going through, and there's still a lot of push on driver pay. So you're always, even though you're in the middle of maybe what might be a 5-year contract, you still have to take care of the drivers through that period.
yeah,
And so we're constantly talking with our customer about that. And then it's like getting the increases that typically you have a contract that has increases built into it. So you can give drivers increases throughout, but just making sure you're taking advantage of those and just running your business.
yeah,
It wasn't rocket science. This is trucking. And, you have the truck costs, you have insurance. Insurance through that time that we owned the business was going through the roof. So that did help us.
yeah.
Uh, but I remember one year we had 200 million in umbrella covered. And it was like cheap. And then the next year we probably had 100 million. We couldn't find carriers to give us enough insurance like we wanted. And
Wow.
then I want to say the last year we owned it, we only had 50 million in umbrella covered, and we weren't happy with that. But we couldn't. There weren't carriers that would even give you. And then we were stacking carriers on top of carriers to get there.
Yeah,
So you're like, well, what's reasonable? What can we afford? But kind of back to your question, I think it was just looking at all the P's and Q's in the business and doing the right thing.
yeah, yeah.
And,
I think it's so good.
and then having good people. Nobody in our group wanted us not to be successful and
Yeah.
bring in, questionable business. That wasn't us. We all worked together. I did ask our CEO once, I said, what could we, in your opinion, have done better during that time that we had the business? And he says, having our division maybe working closer together. They're
Uh,
very competitive. These guys are all competitive, right?
yeah.
And the perishable group is, bringing, whatever. We don't have great margins in our business, but some 5% to the bottom line. And then we got retail is over here and he's struggling a little bit and he's got maybe 2% up to the bottom line. And then automotive is just, bragging. He's I got this new customer and blah blah. Things are real good over here. Well, the guy in retail didn't want to take his drivers and send them over to automotive to help them out. And we didn't, it's not a perfect world. All the, you try to get the expenses to follow, from an accounting standpoint from one division to the other. And
Yeah.
we never had it really figured out. We kind of came up with, whatever well, you can charge $2 a mile or whatever it was. But
Yeah.
that was the one thing, you said, hey, if we could have figured that out, we could have helped ourselves.
Yeah.
But again, you want managers who are competitive,
Yeah. Exactly.
and we had this going on and so it was all, safety. These guys all got measured on safety. We bonused off of safety. We didn't bonus off of profitability, things like
Very
that. Kind of different, but if you can run a safe terminal, man, the bottom line will take care of itself.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I was about to say. Yeah, you figure out the key metrics in your business that drives the bottom line, and then bonus off of those. And safety was obviously one of those for y'all, which I love.
Yes. That,
Yeah. Well, so I'm curious, going back, one other question on profitability before we get to the sell aspect. And so, um, the retail division you said was the lowest when y'all took it over, or just from a profit standpoint. Was it also just really taking care of the customers, or did you have to go through any like full analysis to be like, okay, we have to literally stop saying yes to this one retailer because it's impossible to make money. So we got to really narrow the focus to like have our best yes basically in the retail space so that we're profitable. Kind of walk us through what y'all did to really get the retail space, because it seems like the automotive grew like crazy and obviously these other divisions, but
yeah.
on the retail, what was y'all's focus there?
Well, I will say that, when it came time to renew and our prices went up, 20% or whatever the number was,
Yeah.
that we may have lost that business. To be honest with you, I can't think of where we did. But in
Well, I
most
want to
cases,
say that I want to pause right there for a second. You said you put a 20% increase.
well, we put an increase in, a large increase trying to get it where it needed to be.
Yeah. And you said you hardly lost any customers when you
Yeah,
did that?
I can't think of, I'm not saying we didn't, but I can't think of, I mean, I think the customer knew that, hey, this deal's too good to be true.
Yeah.
And then when
Okay.
it was time to renew, they were like, okay, they took care of us for all those years. And now they're coming back to us with a realistic figure.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, let's, they know their business, they know where they're at and they deserve it. I mean, that's how I,
For sure. And I have to pause right there real quick because I want every business owner that's here listening to this to think about what he just said, because you're on the other side of it, all right? You sold the business, you're on the other side
yeah,
of this
yeah,
deal. And you are not stressed or worried about the people that potentially could have left with a massive price increase to protect your margins of your business. In fact, I love that you said that. You're like, I don't even remember if anybody left. I think there's so much fear in the moment when you are issuing a price increase as a business owner to think about, what if half my customers leave or whatever, right? The fear behind that. And you're on the other side of it saying like, well, I don't even remember if it was an issue or not. And I just love that so much. I just want people to hear that, because there's like, that's half the battle, I feel like, in creating healthy margins in your business is accurately pricing your service or your product. And I love that y'all were able to do that. And it wasn't even a big deal at all inside of that division to get to a healthy state. So anyway, thanks for sharing that, Dave.
yeah. And the other thing I'll say is, so they put out RFPs, so a
Yeah.
new business, they give you these RFPs. And many times the information is not good. It's garbage. So you need to know what you priced and what you're doing. That was the other piece that I would say
That's
that
good.
we did a better job of saying, okay, why is this happening? They priced it, 100,000 miles a week and you're not seeing them, whatever it was. We just did a better job of digging into that and then dealing with it with the customer saying, hey, because there's when all this technology, they look back at it and what you did, a year ago or 2 years ago may not be what you do.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good. I love it. Okay, so as we kinda wrap up a little bit today, I'm
Yes.
very curious. I appreciate you spending the time, Dave. This has been so much fun. Obviously, kinda bring us full circle. I know a little bit of the story, but just talk us through who came back into the picture after y'all owned it for 5 years to potentially sell it, and just kind of share whatever you wanna share, but just walk us through how that opportunity even presented itself to say, like, "Okay, you and the 6 other owners, we're making this thing more profitable, we're growing the thing, doing really good things." And then how did that conversation even start by saying, like, "Is there a potential to sell this thing just 5 years in? Why should we hold it for another 20 years?" Like,
Yeah.
kinda walk us through y'all's mentality as kind of the ownership group.
The fourth year that we owned the business, we thought, okay, what are we going to do with this thing? We had a couple guys that were in their 70s. Our CEO was in his late 60s, mid 60s, late 60s. Our CFO was getting close to 70. And we got to think about what we were going to do with the business. And we looked at it. And we looked at a couple different. There was a capital fund type company out of Atlanta that we spoke with. Anyway, so we looked at that. Nothing fell into place. And then that fifth year, we knew we were having a terrific year. Bottom line was, probably up 5 times versus 6 times versus where we were at that first year we owned it.
Wow.
So that was we took sales up about 2.5 times. So we were about 230 million and we were doing 600 plus.
Wow.
We
Okay.
brought the bottom line, which was not a whole lot, up about 5 to 6 times.
Wow.
Um, and we leased our tractor from semis from Penske and Ryder, and we had the opportunity to go talk to the Penske team. I worked for Penske, knew a lot of the people.
Yeah.
And anyway, it fell into place. They liked what they saw. We shared a lot of customers that all in the mortgage sector. A lot of those customers are shared with Penske. We would compete against Penske. We would compete against Ryder. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they both had the same. They all had dedicated logistics group. Anyway, and I don't know, kind of a God thing.
Yeah.
It come in, and again, I wasn't. I'm a sales guy. I also, helped out with the fleet, but they came in and gave us an offer after they reviewed our financial and made it easy.
Yeah.
Do this. Let's do it. When you work for a company, 20 years, whatever it is, it's tough. It is tough, but they did everything they they said they would. I worked for them for a couple years after the sale, just to make
Okay.
sure. A few of us did actually. Our CEO did. Three of our operating VPs did. One of them is still there. Uh,
Okay.
so we made sure the handoff was smooth. They took care of us. For me, in the sales end. So I had dual purpose. We wore many caps at Blackrock. When we went to Penske, it was truly a sales.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
those operating VPs that we had at Blackhorse, they also sold a lot of business. Don't kid yourself. That
Yeah,
we're,
yeah.
I was the only guy that had a business development title, but everybody sold business. When it went to Penske, then all of a sudden my account base doubled,
Oh,
and
wow.
so it was all good. Wow, so good for me, good for the operating VPs. Their world got smaller. To be quite honest with you, also
Yeah.
they were handling 10 different accounts in the perishable goods. Now he's handling 3 accounts.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but on a bigger scale. But
Very cool. And so I'm curious, obviously, you stayed on with them, you said, for a couple of years after the
yeah,
sale.
yeah,
Is that something that really the main reason for well, I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of Penske. The main reason for that was just to, keep the relationships through the transition, or was it something that what do you feel like was the heart behind, like, was it something that you just wanted to do to make sure that you were taking care of your people really well? Or just kinda talk us through I just think when people because one of the things I talk about with business owners is preparing for a sale and whenever they wanna sell that business, what is that gonna look like post-sale? Are you still involved and not involved? Do you walk away? Like, I'm curious to get your thoughts on just the 2 years for your
Uh,
time spent.
I think all of us that stayed on board just wanted to make sure everything was smooth.
Yeah.
We did not want, they had treated us so, they treated us well. I had worked with these guys in my previous life. We worked with them because we continued to lease trucks from them at Flackland. Uh, I think it was more of, let's just make sure this, and I think they wanted it too.
Yeah,
They
for
didn't,
sure.
we had typical contract language, but, uh, with non-competes and all that good stuff. But it wasn't about that. It was about just making sure that what they want, you know, they got their arms around over a period of time.
Yeah. It's good.
It was interesting. We sold that business COVID, and then the driver rates went to up 20-25%. So we're
Um,
constantly. I think they were very happy that we stuck around because we had the relationship, and
yeah.
they wouldn't have had a successful business or takeover if they didn't have the relationships that we had to keep the business going.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And be able to go back and find the right people to talk to about rate increases so they have the service levels that they want.
Yeah, yeah. I love
I
that.
can't imagine being in that trucking business today. I mean, everything they've gone through. Now the business is really soft. It's been that way, it seems like, for 2 or 3 years. I can't imagine. It's the trucking business is always up and down. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
amazing. You think it just be everybody needs their, and again, the food business is very consistent. Um, but if you're a regular shipper hauling paper products or whatever it is off a boat coming from China, that stuff up and down.
Yeah.
If a trucking company is making their living off of that, they're hurting. They're
Yeah.
hurting. The broker business, which is, not that we depended on brokers a whole lot, but the broker business has been really tough over the last 3 years. And that's where they go find freight to, they go find freight and then they go find a shipper. Well,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
these guys went from working 12-hour days, making a lot of money,
Yeah.
coming in for 2 hours, and that's all they got.
And you think that, sorry to just get on that, because I'm curious about that world too. You feel like a lot of that drive to go from 12-hour days down to 2-hour days is because of the technology in the industry now? Or is it because that service is just not needed like it used to be needed because it's just a different business model now? Or like kind of speak to what you know about the trucking industry and why that brokerage, because it used to be a huge thing. And I remember thinking when I first learned about this, I'm like, I can't believe that's somebody's business where they're just slinging phone calls left and right to try to get stuff done. And I'm
You should
curious
go,
why it
yeah,
is.
you should go into a broker office sometime when they're slinging phone, and they have 3 or 4 computer screens in front of them. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember the day where you'd be hauling a broker load, and they would be calling our driver over and over again. Because whatever it was, if it was electronics or whatever it was hot. And those guys,
Yeah.
they're just. But you asked me a question. So what has happened? And I'm not. It's just part of the cycle, it seems, of the
Okay.
freight business. I don't know what it is. I mean, the economy goes up and down, but the freight business just goes up and down. From the equipment side, the trailer manufacturers will be making record numbers of trailers in 2000, and now they're making, a half of the number of trailers. And you're like, what in the world? Uh, Truck manufacturing, I know, is tractor manufacturing truck, semi. The power
Yeah.
unit is down compared to where it was. It's
Okay.
just it just seems to me the cycle of the business. Sometimes it can be an indicator of the economy, you know.
Sure. I was just curious about that. If it's like a permanent thing or just a cyclical thing. Like maybe you saw the same thing 20 or 30 years ago where brokers were going from 12-hour days to 2-hour days and they ran back up later. I'm just curious if it's more cyclical, if it's like permanent.
Again, that's not the business we were in. That we didn't want to be in that business.
Yeah, exactly.
We
Yeah.
want, hey, you want your 50 loads of groceries taken to the store? That's us. That's
Yeah.
what we can do. When the economy would get tough, 08, 09, our biggest customer, business boom. So we boomed with them, so that I tell
Well,
you that we got rid of some of our accounts, retail type customers that's one big one is not, that they haven't been in business for quite some time. But,
yeah. Well, I love hearing Dave. I just really appreciate you spending time today because it's just so much fun. Yeah, I'm actually reading this book right now called Excellence Wins. It's by Mr. Schultz, who started the Ritz-Carlton hotel chain.
okay.
And I just feel like you kind of live that out a little bit of just saying like we have money to spend on customer service because we want to treat our customers the absolute best. And you got to reap the benefits of like doing that decades upon decades upon decades to like build something that's pretty incredible. And like, obviously the Lord did a lot of things throughout the whole journey of it, but it's a common theme that I keep going back to say like, man, I want to not just do it in my business, but help other business owners say like, okay, how that margin that you're creating is not just for some just happy dollar amount bank account that's at the end of the day. It's to literally have a greater impact in the people that you're called to serve. And I think that y'all got to live that out, which is just so much fun to kind of hear the story of that. And the cherry on top, I love just like you talked about the relationships on the front end of the purchase, the relationships on the back end of the purchase, and how the Lord just kind of made both of those things happen. I think it's just so powerful because I'm a full believer that everything awesome in life always happens through relationships because the Lord divinely connects those relationships. And I
Yep.
think that you're a testament to that as well, which is just so much fun. So, Mr. Day, thanks for being on the podcast. This was very, very fun. I appreciate you being willing to do it.
No, I appreciate the time. It's fun to tell the story.
So much fun. Well, thanks so much.